Today on U.S. Farm Report, Chinese spies steal seed corn technology, not a Twitter hoax. Remember Doha and the WTO? It's still alive, apparently. And meteorologist Mike Hoffman calls a full flannel alert as temperatures plummet.
U.S. Farm Report, brought to you by New Holland Equipment, built smart for the way you farm, work, and live. See your authorized New Holland dealer today. By Mycogen Seeds, growing corn and soybeans is about more than just your yield. It's what you were meant to do. Visit acresofpossibility.com. And by Chevy Silverado, the one you depend on, the one that lasts.
Hello, and welcome to U.S. Farm Report. I'm John Phipps. We have a story this week about seed corn espionage. No, seriously. Economists tell us if you raise the price enough, you get a black market. And if we've learned anything about the Chinese reverse engineering, it's that they're good and fast. It also means it's not impossible to imagine seed corn scams in the countryside, as well as theft problems this spring. One thing for sure, when I spill a handful loading up the planter next spring, I'm stopping to pick up every kernel. Time now for the headlines. Here's Tyne Morgan.
Thank you, John. Charges in a seed espionage case were filed this week in Iowa. According to the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of Iowa, the suspect is from China, but a permanent resident in the U.S. Mo Haylong is accused of stealing at least $30 to $40 million worth of seed technology from both DuPont Pioneer and Monsanto. He works for a seed company that's part of a Chinese conglomerate, King's Nauer Seed. Haylong faces 10 years in prison and a $5 million fine. In other news, USDA's December supply and demand estimates showed global wheat ending stocks at just over 182 million metric tons. That's slightly higher than trade expectations of 179. Global corn ending stocks dropped to 162.4 versus the expectations of 163. Soy ending stocks are pegged at 70.62 million metric tons. Well, the World Trade Organization has come up with its first comprehensive trade deal since 1995. The deal is intended to boost global trade, including better duty-free access for goods sold by developing countries. It also allows those countries to increase farm subsidies. It could add about $1 trillion to world trade. Well, those are the headlines. Meteorologist Mike Hoffman joins us now with Crop Watch.
Crop Watch this week focuses on the extreme cold and icy conditions we faced all week long. From Shawano, Wisconsin, one farmer posted that he just finished corn harvest. It was minus 19 degrees. He says they had some fueling problems but worked through them. It's been a week-long battle for citrus producers in the Golden State. California Citrus Mutual says growers had more than 7 days of overnight lows in the 20s in the San Joaquin Valley. Mandarin and navel orange crops are most at risk. No specifics yet on how much of the crop was lost. The storm created some photo opportunities as well, though. Denise Runyon sent these pictures from northeast New Mexico. Ice coated everything but was gone by the afternoon. She says ranchers were busy breaking ice for cattle herds. And Charlie McConnell from Russellville, Arkansas shared this photo. The ice storm has been very challenging for thousands of people, but it does provide some spectacular images for the camera lens. I'll have my forecast coming up in just a little while.
Up next, we head to Chicago for our marketing roundtables. This week, Tyne is on location at the Executive Women in Ag Conference hosted by our partners at Top Producer Magazine. The conversation begins in just 2 minutes.
U.S. Farm Report is brought to you by Stratego Yield Fungicide from Bayer, official fungicide of the Yield Bump. Stratego Yield. Healthy fields, higher yields.
You're watching U.S. Farm Report with host John Phipps, Farm Director Al Pell, National Reporter Tyne Morgan, and meteorologist Mike Hoffman. U.S. Farm Report, the spirit of the countryside.
A man and his truck, and his son who would rather play computer games than go camping. And a valley, and a river, and the stars, and a new convert. The all-new Chevy Silverado, from one generation to the next, strong for all the roads ahead.
Growing wheat and barley is serious business. where every acre has to produce not only a quality crop, but a return on investment. Prosaro fungicide from Bayer can help. It's proven to offer powerful activity on leaf and head diseases, improving yield under all types of conditions, thus maximizing profit. Growing with Prosaro, it's like growing money.
Why is B&W's turnover ball the best-selling gooseneck hitch in the country? Maybe it's the ingenious way it solves everyday problems. Or because it's time-tested and is rated to tow 30,000 pounds. Maybe it's because our lifetime warranty gives hard-working people peace of mind. Or maybe it's because folks love to own a hitch that's still 100% made in America. The turnover ball by B&W. Trusted.
96% of American farms are still family-owned, which means on the farm, the CEO is usually referred to as Mom. And Mom usually refers to her big farm operation as home. She knows that to raise something right, you can't cut corners.
Ready to go? Yep.
And of all the things you can plant, the most important is a little bit of yourself. Wherever your day takes you, and however it ends, chances are it began with a farmer.
U.S. Farm Report at the Executive Women in Agriculture Conference is brought to you by America's Farmers Mom of the Year contest. Visit americasfarmers.com for more information.
Our market guys often say women are the best grain marketers as they keep emotion out of the decisions. With that in mind, our marketing roundtable this week heads to Chicago. Tyne Morgan leads the discussion.
We're back now on U.S. Farm Report at the Executive Women in Agriculture Conference in Chicago, Illinois. And it's the one time of year we get to have a panel full of women. We have Naomi Bloom of Stuart Peterson, Molly Springer of Advanced Trading, and Julianne Johnston of Pro Farmer. Well, let's dive right into things. We're going to look at 2014 in both of these segments today, but looking back at 2013, we had roller coaster weather, extremely wet conditions to begin, and then it turned dry, but we still managed to produce a 14 billion bushel crop. Looking at 2014, if we have favorable weather, do you think that, what do you think will happen then?
Well, we'll of course have another large supply on our hands. The thing that we're going to probably see, though, is that in the coming spring, we will likely see corn acres be reduced. And the thing to focus on is that if we go from 95 million acres this year down to 90, and if we assume trendline yields and that demand is constant, maybe just a little more demand for feed, it actually puts ending stocks next year at 1.7 billion bushels. And right now, at $4 corn, we have 1.88 billion bushel carryout. So that, to me, says we're not going to see $3 corn quite yet. But I do think that we'll see a year of quiet prices. We stay near cost of production, just a little bit higher, a little bit lower. But ultimately, just keep an eye on demand and then the supply from that standpoint, too.
Molly, folks have been scaring us talking about $2.75 corn. Do you agree with Naomi, or are you on the other end of the spectrum?
I think both are potential. The hard part is there's so many factors that are going to play into growing a crop next year. Yeah, we got to have the acres, but you got to have weather. And even though we didn't have weather this year that was favorable, we still had a pretty big crop. So at the end of the day, I think it's hard to really predict one way or the other, but the potential is there.
Julianne, I know at Pro Farmer you guys look at this closely. What are Pro Farmer's projections going into 2014?
Well, it's hard to talk about the corn market without talking about the soybean market for 2014. When you start to look at December 2014 corn futures and you look at November 2014 soybean futures, we're at a price ratio that's back to equilibrium. That means that producers might be looking at more agronomic reasons for their crop rotations for next year, and because we had some problems with corn on corn for several years, Pro Farmer's current expectation, now these are ballpark estimates and it's a moving target, is 91 million acres for corn and about 82 for soybeans, which means corn acres are coming down from this year, soybean acres are gonna go up. But we're in that demand rebuilding phase, and that's making a difference in helping stabilize these prices. We're seeing some volatility come out of these markets. I think we're gonna see, after we find some support, fewer big price moves in the upcoming year.
Do you think we're going to have that acreage shift?
I think we are. I think one of the X factors that we could see is South America. If crop size is favorable there and weather is favorable, that maybe could play into changing the acres a little bit come spring.
Definitely. Well, Naomi, let's look at the upside of this. These lower prices. Have we got to a point, are we low enough in price yet that we can actually buy back demand. I was in Colombia this summer and they said, price is a driving factor. We don't want your crops right now because it's too expensive. So finally, have we got down to those levels that other countries do want our crops again?
Yes and no. I think for corn, we're at this nice stable price point. Our export market right now is right on target for the 5-year average of where prices and exports should be. It's to keep up with demand. But on the soybean side of things, yes, the demand is current right now, but the thing is, when you have this voracious crop coming out of South America, and when you have the American farmer potentially planting so many more acres of soybeans next year, if you look at a continuous November soybean chart, you need to really see the head and shoulders formation that's on there. Because if all of these acres come to fruition, we are looking at a downside objective potentially of $9 for soybeans, maybe even $8, and that could happen even with corn price staying stagnant, and that puts that corn-soybean ratio back to where it ought to be.
I got chills. She said $8 and $9 soybeans. Do you agree with that?
Well, our estimate right now is around $10.50 for the new crop marketing year. That means you're going to have spikes, you're going to have a little bit of lows, and the important message is there's going to be challenges this next year. Be patient. There should be times of profitability. The message that Pro Farmer is giving you is be patient during times of non-profitable times, and look for those times to market. It's going to be more challenging in the upcoming year.
But will exports be a strengthening factor?
Well, corn exports and corn demand is coming back. It's not completely back to where it was 2 years ago, but we're getting prices where we're rebuilding demand, and that's important for the corn market moving forward.
Molly?
I think ethanol is a big thing in the corn demand. Yes, they lowered the mandate just recently, but if you look, there's ethanol plants coming back online. We're seeing some pickup of usage there, and so I think even though they've got a ceiling, you could see a lot more demand in ethanol as well.
Well, and a mandate doesn't necessarily mean it's a limit.
Exactly.
Definitely something we have to keep in mind. All right, good conversation so far. We have to take a break, but we're going to talk livestock when we come back on U.S. Farm Report, so stay tuned because that conversation begins in just 2 minutes.
You see it everywhere nowadays. We call it the yield bump. It's a grower's way of saying you made a good decision. Because when you treat young corn with an early season application of Stratego Yield fungicide, you get stronger stalks, healthier fields, and even higher yields. So get a jump on your yield bump with Stratego Yield Early Season.
This is more than just your yield. More than a job well done. It's what you were meant to do. And a passion we share for the life of your land, for the life that you love. It's more than just another day. It's your moment. And with Mycogen Seeds, this is just the beginning.
Clear! There's a better way to jumpstart your soil back to health. Apply Endzone to protect and increase nitrogen efficiency without killing bacteria. Apply Prevent to increase phosphorus availability and reduce fixation. Better yet, use them both to get more from your fertilizer investment and see higher potential yields. Ag Explorer, your prescription for healthy soil.
Hey, what's going on?
Just checking the fields. Yours are looking pretty good. Must be doing something right.
Actually, I got a guy.
You got a guy?
Well, it's not just any guy. I got a Channel Seedsman.
Channel, yeah?
Yeah, I've been working with him pretty close to get, well, you can see for yourself. This is what I'd recommend. Let's get to work. Now this is what you want to see.
Maybe I should get a guy.
Maybe you should get a Channel Seedsman.
Find your Channel Seedsman at channel.com.
U.S. Farm Report at the Executive Women in Agriculture Conference is brought to you by America's Farmers Mom of the Year contest. Visit americasfarmers.com for more information.
Welcome back to the special marketing roundtable on U.S. Farm Report. We're here at the Executive Women in Agriculture Conference in Chicago, Illinois. Well, we talked row crops earlier in the show. Now we're going to get into livestock. When we look at this cattle inventory, we have better pasture conditions, better feed conditions. Do you think we'll see our numbers increase in 2014?
The current projection and my expectation is we're going to see tighter supplies in 2014, down currently around 5% from a year ago. So we're going to see a lot of challenges ahead for rebuilding this demand base because producers just haven't shown us that they're actively rebuilding the herd yet.
And Julianne, when we were here last year, you were talking about years that ended in a 3. So talk about in 2013, did that come true? And then what we're going to see in 2014?
We did see a new all-time high in the cattle futures in 2013, but it wasn't that move to a 10-year cycle high in a year that ends with 3 that we expected. With the projection that supplies will be even tighter in 2014, we're going to see higher prices.
What's playing in the cattle futures favor right now?
The export demand is really solid. Exports are up 4% from year-ago levels, even at these higher price points. The one thing to keep in mind is that the placement number, probably we're not going to see an improvement in that because I think some of the heifers are being pulled back. And so I agree that we're going to see some firm to higher prices for the first quarter, but then it is something where with low feed prices right now, the herd will start to rebuild. So there's not going to be this euphoria that's going to be able to maintain over the long term. And at second quarter of next year into third quarter, it's time to start thinking defensively because there will be down the road more of the herd rebuilding happening, but for now, definitely some firmer prices for now.
Well, and those 10-year cycle highs provide some really good opportunities to do those hedges that you're talking about.
Absolutely.
So keep an eye on that.
Molly, I heard from some experts who say they're afraid that production is going to outpace demand when we're talking about these cattle markets. Is that a fear of yours?
It could. And it's always a fear, I think, when it comes to livestock or row crops for that matter, in either one. But you see a lot of guys holding back heifers for breeding to really work on increasing that. And so, I think it just depends on how that plays out.
When we talk about rebuilding the herd, it's not something that's going to happen overnight. I mean, they're talking maybe 2016 at best that we'll get to pre-drought levels. What are your predictions on that?
It's so hard to say the age of the cattle producer these years. These guys are looking at these fantastic prices, and if they're holding heifers back, they've got some great hope of profitability. But, guys that are 60, they're looking about getting out of this industry, and it's going to be hard to find the new generation that's going to be there for the cattle market.
Definitely. Some of these guys that we don't know if they'll ever get back in.
Absolutely.
Box beef prices, what are you thinking on that?
Well, when we talk about demand outpace or supply outpacing demand, I don't think that's going to happen this year. Like Naomi says, we have strong export demand. We see expectations for stable export demand next year. And consumers had great acceptance of beef prices around the $180 level. We're seeing some resistance at $210 for choice box beef prices. So I think we're hitting some levels where demand is being hurt. But even if domestic demand stays stable, we're still going to see tighter supplies next year.
Let's switch gears a little bit. Let's talk about pork prices. Last year when we sat here at this time, we were talking about record losses for some pork producers. This year we've had PEDV, porcine epidemic diarrhea virus, hit the market. What are you thinking for herd numbers going into 2014?
That's the big question right now because the USDA had projected these larger numbers, and now the reality is that we're seeing slaughter levels actually down 3% from where the USDA was projecting it to be. The most likely scenario is that in June, when the bulk of the PED hit, then that's when, of course, we lost a lot of animals, and those are animals that should have been being slaughtered right now.
Right.
And so that's probably why our slaughter numbers are down. So there's a lot of tug of war right now between what the USDA thinks ought to be happening out there versus the reality that the cash market is telling us.
Molly, we only have a minute left, but the Smithfield acquisition taking place, some think that that's really going to provide some opportunities, export opportunities for the swine industry. Are you thinking the same?
It could, especially from China. I think that could be a big one, but that also could be influenced by politics on their behalf too. So, I think it just depends on how that plays out.
What do you think about exports?
Well, the export demand is expected to rebuild a little bit next year. We have some challenges coming up in the next year. Of course, we have China. We have some great markets in Mexico that love our pork, but we don't have Russia again. So we need to rebuild some of these countries that need our pork. Quarter over quarter next year, pork production is expected to be higher. So use these prices right now to look at some hedges because there's some good prices out there right now in futures contracts.
All right, a nice look at 2014. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. Please stay with us because we'll have more U.S. Farm Report in just 2 minutes.
Some people tend to dream small. Others dream big. But with agriculture's ability to feed the 1 billion hungry people on the planet and a projected global population of 9 billion by the year 2050, it's time to dream huge. Farmers Feeding the World is about agriculture coming together to increase both hunger solutions and food production. Learn more. Give generously. Please dream huge with us.
96% of American farms are still family-owned, which means on the farm, the CEO is usually referred to as Mom. And Mom usually refers to her big farm operation as home. She knows that to raise something right, you can't cut corners.
Ready to go? Yep.
And of all the things you can plant, the most important is a little bit of yourself. Wherever your day takes you, and however it ends, chances are it began with a farmer.
You want a closer look, but the naked eye can only see so much. Introducing Zoomies, the compact, hands-free, high-power binoculars you wear like sunglasses. Zoomies gives you instant 300% magnification that brings everything up close. Zoomies binoculars utilize the same vision magnification technology of expensive, high-power binoculars and condenses it into microvision lenses that adjust easily with a turn of the focus dial and magnify up to 300%. You can even switch on the sunshade to eliminate glare without switching to sunglasses. You can get Zoomies at the factory direct price of only $10. Order now and get this handy neck lanyard and travel storage bag absolutely free. But wait, order now and we'll double the offer and send a second complete set free. Just pay separate processing and handling. That's 2 complete sets for just $10. Here's how to order.
To order Zoomies for $10 plus processing and handling, call 1-800-374-9681 or order online at buyzoomies.com.
Markets Now is brought to you by DuPont Pioneer, helping you get the right product on the right acre. Science with service, delivering success.
We're back on U.S. Farm Report from the Executive Women in Ag Conference, here with Angie McGuire of Citizens Grain. Now it's time for our Markets Now segment. So looking at our old crops, still have some farmers with some crop left in the bin. What should they be thinking about right now?
Lots of farmers with crop left in the bin. It's probably the biggest question I get asked. Opportunities in new crop are presenting themselves, so we're taking advantage of those. But with the spreads and basis doing different things throughout the country, I have a lot of guys wondering, what should I do? Biggest thing is pay attention to the bean inverse, pay attention to what the basis is doing and if it's offsetting that inverse, because you will lose money come January 1 in that if the basis doesn't offset it. Pay attention to cash price and be aware of the fact that it costs something to have grain in your bin. There is a cost to carry. You've got to figure out what the interest you're losing on not having that money in hand. Right. And you have the risk of losing quality, especially with a higher moisture, lower test weight crop sitting in the bin. It's always good to just keep grain moving throughout the year.
Angie, what about these farmers who aren't selling for income reasons and they have to hold on till 2014? Do you see some upside potential right before we have this January report that could be a biggie coming out?
I think there are chances, and I definitely think that the farmer has room for negotiation right now. We're trying to refill the pipeline. Have a good relationship with your buyer. Go out there and say, hey, I'll sell you X amount Jan, Feb, March timeframe. You're killing 2 birds with 1 stone, and you're able to do something from a forward contracting standpoint that may not impact necessarily your income.
So, but when you're talking about these end users, is rail still huge right now? What's really driving that?
Rail's good, ethanol's good, export market's been good. I mean, our overall market is good from a relative standpoint. Right. It may not be what we saw a year ago at this time, but you have to remember we have 3 times or 2 times, 2.5 times the amount of corn and a good amount of beans still standing out in the countryside.
Angie, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Please stay with us. We'll be back with more U.S. Farm Report in just a moment.
With AgWeb's Cash Grain Bids mobile app, find cash bids and base levels in your area by zip code. Get bids from 5 elevators closest to you. Download the app for free today.
A man and his truck, and his son who would rather play computer games than go camping. and a valley, and a river, and the stars, and a new convert. The all-new Chevy Silverado, from one generation to the next, strong for all the roads ahead.
It's a competitive world out there. Dramatic changes are happening in agriculture. Land values are creeping higher. The market is nipping at your tail. Stay ahead of the pack by attending the Top Producer Seminar in downtown Chicago, where you'll learn from the nation's best minds in agribusiness and network with hundreds of like-minded large acre producers. Learn more at topproducerseminar.com.
The secret to finding more buyers for your cattle is no longer a secret. CattleExchange.com is like no other site. It brings the greater ease of use, detailed information, and searchability found in sites like Cars.com and Autotrader.com to the cattle industry. Upload photos and video to attract more buyers and share greater detail in your listing. Cattle buyers and sellers are connecting in ways they never imagined. Go to www.cattle-exchange.com and discover the secret to better selling.
One of the most contentious elements in the Farm Bill debate is cross-compliance, following an approved conservation plan on your entire farm to qualify for government support. Farmers in general hate this rule. It's a minor headache for me, but as the Corn Belt moves north and west, thanks to climate change, farmers in Minnesota and the Dakotas are looking at thousands of potholes and thinking, if only we could drain and plant corn in those wet spots. Unfortunately, those potholes are important habitat for waterfowl, so hunters especially want to keep them in place. Some wildlife experts say as many as a third of the migratory fowl could disappear without the potholes. Well, at the risk of offending Duck Dynasty fans, I have to say that my response to this population decrease is, works for me. Why would lowering the duck population be such a disaster as long as it did not truly endanger any species? This is not the same category as poaching elephants or rhino for their ivory, after all, and the farms of America are not responsible for providing entertainment for hunters, in my opinion. How do we even know the current waterfowl populations are the right ones anyway? Meanwhile, across the border in Canada, farmers are not similarly restricted and their potholes are rapidly disappearing. Of course, I wouldn't do this through ending cross-compliance, but by ending crop insurance subsidies. I'll bet the ducks can adapt, and so can the farmers. Let us know what you think. Send emails to mailbag@usfarmreport.com or call and leave us a voicemail. Coming up in our next half hour, a special Leave a Legacy from California. Stay with us. The second half of U.S. Farm Report is coming right up.
U.S. Farm Report is produced and distributed by Farm Journal Television.
Today on U.S. Farm Report, the FDA nudges U.S. meat production toward fewer antibiotics. Growing wine consumption raises hopes for U.S. producers. And Chinese demand for tree nuts forces hard decisions for one California family.
U.S. Farm Report, brought to you by New Holland Equipment, built smart for the way you farm, work, and live. See your authorized New Holland dealer today. By Mycogen Seeds, growing corn and soybeans is about more than just your yield. It's what you were meant to do. Visit acresofpossibility.com. And by Chevy Silverado, the one you depend on, the one that lasts.
Hello, and welcome to U.S. Farm Report. I'm John Phipps. We have, likely, to my great surprise, a 2-year budget deal in Congress. It's a timid little thing which can best be described as keeping the lights on while we kick the can down the road farther than we have for some time. But it's a deal pushed through by both parties. That fact alone makes it noteworthy. Recovery from gridlock may consist of small steps like this. Let's get started with all the headlines now, and Tyne Morgan.
Thank you, John. The government says it plans to ban the use of antibiotics in animal agriculture when used for growth promotion. The Food and Drug Administration announced its plan this week. The FDA says it's trying to address concerns over antimicrobial resistance in animals and humans. The agency will ask animal pharmaceutical companies to voluntarily stop marketing drugs that are important for treating human infection for use in animal production. FDA says it only wants these antibiotics used if animals are sick. So if the companies sign on, prescriptions would be required to use those drugs. Two of the biggest veterinary drug companies, Elanco and Zoetis, say they will follow FDA's advice. Well, we won't see a Farm Bill deal before the holidays. This comes as Farm Bill debate heated up this week when Senate Majority Leader said he won't agree to an extension. Just before the House adjourned Friday, representatives voted on an extension through January 16th. Ag Committee Chair Frank Lucas says that allows Congress more time to reach a compromise. The American Soybean Association says the four leaders from the House and Senate Ag Committees appear to have reached a framework agreement. ASA says they've heard the deal includes $8 billion in cuts to SNAP, which is formerly known as food stamps. It's still unclear whether we'll actually see a new Farm Bill or another extension by the new January deadline. Meanwhile, with a week left before the Senate goes on break, a group of 10 senators introduced a bipartisan bill to eliminate the corn ethanol mandate. The senators say current law raised the cost of food and animal feed. They also claim it damages the environment. California Democrat Dianne Feinstein and Oklahoma Republican Tom Coburn introduced the bill. Feinstein says while it eliminates the mandate for corn-based ethanol, it supports the development of advanced biofuels like from soybean oil, grasses, and trees. Well, John, a lot to talk about in Washington. We knew it would, but my gosh, these frigid temps across the U.S. I don't want to complain, but I'm tired of it.
Well, and it's only December, and we haven't seen this kind of early cold. The one thing that bothers me, because we're short on water, is the ground's now locked out. Any moisture we get is going to exacerbate the drought in our area.
Ugh,
and speaking of this pleasant weather, let's head over to Mike Hoffman and the National Forecast.
Well, if you watched Ag Day this week, you might have noticed we started talking about the Siberian Express. This is some very cold air coming straight out of Siberia. This happens once in a while, but this batch of air is expected to come right across the Arctic Circle and plunge into northern portions of Canada as we head into the early part of the week. You can see there. And then as we head through the latter parts of the week, we are expecting it to start to affect our far northern plains, Montana area, for Thursday, and beyond that then it looks like this will overspread the entire Corn Belt as we head into next weekend, and so this whole air mass will probably be dominating our weather right through most of Christmas week, and this could, many times the computer models don't catch it, this could be several degrees colder than what we just went through. So I know that's not good news, but that's something we do have to watch. Here's the way the jet stream is shaping up right now. Things are at least a little more tranquil than they have been. We still have that snowstorm moving through the northeast. That will move away. Another quick one kind of coming through the Great Lakes in the northeast for the middle of this week. And then there's the big trough, direct shot of that Arctic air, Siberian air coming right out of the northern portions of Canada. And you can see that's plunging into the lower 48, and that's what that cold air is going to continue to come in. Here's the way things shape up day by day then on Monday. A weak system moving through the northern tier of states. As you can see, there was some snow from northern Minnesota across the Great Lakes, lingering rain showers in parts of Florida. Other than that, not a lot going on, just some snow showers in some of the higher elevations of the northern Rockies. Mild air in the southwest, cold but not as cold across the northern plains. Jet stream still shows a pretty good trough, but again, the air is kind of moderating a little bit. And as we head through the middle of the week, it's going to moderate even more. I'm even going to call it mild there for the middle of the country. There's a strong cold front, though. That will be causing some snow showers along it, rain in the Pacific Northwest, and you can see some lingering snow in the Northeast. Other than that, fairly tranquil weather across most of the lower 48 as we kind of go somewhat zonal for a while with that jet stream. As we head into Friday, then, that cold air, of course, there's nothing to stop the cold air coming southward straight down the plains Plains states. So all the way into Florida, into Texas, it's going to be cold. Don't worry, Florida, you're not getting cold. You're going to stay warm for the end of the week. Showers and even some thunderstorms there. This storm system, we're going to have to watch it. This could be anywhere throughout this area, but it looks like a pretty good snow to the northwest of it and some upslope snows in the central portions of the Rockies. There's the jet stream going all the way down into northern Mexico. Now, taking a look at temperatures next week, you can see most of the country I'm expected to be below normal, above normal in the southeast. As far as precipitation next week, then above normal from Arkansas and Mississippi on through the Great Lakes in the northeast, also above normal in many parts of the Rockies, below normal in the far west. And the 30-day outlook for temperatures, I'm still expecting the entire Corn Belt to be colder than normal, as you can see there, above normal in the far southeast, otherwise near normal. And precipitation, John, over the next 30 days, kind of a similar map there from the Gulf Coast all the way to the Great Lakes in the northeast, above normal, also in the upslope areas of the northern Rockies, below normal from Texas westward.
Well, if that second surge is even colder, that's scary cold. You have to be careful with that.
It is scary cold, and it's not 100% that it's coming like that, but it's something I wanted to let everybody know it is a potential.
Right, plan for it. Thank you, Mike. Spirit of the Heartland is next.
U.S. Farm Report is brought to you by Ag Explorer. Nurse your soil back to health with the right prescription of N-Zone and Prevent.
Javen Smith grows continuous corn in southwest Iowa. He says growing corn on corn presents some unique challenges.
Some guys will choose fungicides on specific hybrids. We run fungicides over every hybrid on continuous corn. It's just part of our management strategy. You know, looking at what we're doing today versus what we were doing 5 years ago, I would say, you know, we're using more of the later chemistries and focusing more on plant health and plant disease on our continuous corn. We chose Stratego Yield over our competitors. I guess myself, I just feel that it is the latest chemistry with the Stranobles. It's the newest on the market, and I guess, you know, with prices where they're at, we want to run the Cadillac program. I would say on a weighted average on using Stratego Yield fungicide applications, we are seeing anywhere from 4 to 15 bushel increases on the fungicide treatments.
A man and his truck, and his son who would rather play computer games than go camping. And a valley, and a river, and the stars, and a new convert. The all-new Chevy Silverado, from one generation to the next, strong for all the roads ahead.
Growing wheat and barley is serious business, where every acre has to produce not only a quality crop, but a return on investment. Prosaro fungicide from Bayer can help. It's proven to offer powerful activity on leaf and head diseases, improving yield under all types of conditions, thus maximizing profit. Growing with Prosaro, it's like growing money.
Spirit of the Heartland is brought to you by the all-new Yamaha Viking side-by-side. Yamaha, real world tough.
The growing economy in China is putting a drain on the global wine supply. China has doubled its consumption not once, but twice in the past 5 years. But according to the International Association of Wine and Vine, world production has not managed to keep pace. Tyne Morgan says American vintners hope new world growers can fill that gap.
Just a short drive from Washington, D.C., the winery at Bull Run is hoping to capitalize on growing demand for local wines.
You'll get a little citrus on the nose and in the front of the taste.
But on paper, it looks like these wine lovers are facing a global grape shortage. Morgan Stanley analysts predict that demand would outstrip supply in coming years.
Price is going to go up if it's going to be a shortage, so don't want to pay any more.
But growers say it's too early to hit the panic button.
The United States is strong, as is most of the New World, Australia, Argentina. When you look at the Old World, the production trend is down. It's gone from about 75% to about 60 to 65% in the last dozen years.
That decline opens up a ripe opportunity for growers in the U.S., Australia, and Argentina, and other so-called New World producers.
Last couple of years have been very good. 2013, 2012, both very, very good years.
Prior to that, we had some short years, but we have a very nice balanced supply of wine right now.
A sign of the American love affair with wine, it's now being grown in all 50 states.
By 1990, we had 5 wineries in the state, and today we have 108.
There's also been explosive growth in Michigan. According to the Michigan Grape and Wine Industry Council, there are 101 commercial wineries producing more than 1.3 million gallons of Michigan wine annually. That number has increased from 32 wineries in 2002, producing 400,000 gallons. At Round Barn Winery in Baroda, Michigan, they had ideal weather conditions for their grape crop.
Growing conditions this year have been amazing. It's been slightly cool in the spring, but it really got us through the frost season. So we were allowed to select our own crop essentially this year.
In Virginia, Bull Run owner John Hickok says the local conditions are more important than global shortages.
It's a good sign. It's an incentive for us to say, oh wow, our product is in high demand. But in actuality, we're really not affected by that. We're affected on our microclimate of the people that are around us in Northern Virginia and our growers and our demand.
Forget shortages, these wine growers are raising their glasses all the way to the bank. Reporting for U.S. Farm Report, I'm Tyne Morgan.
2013 grape production was much improved, and this reported wine shortage is disputed by other experts. So don't worry about having to drink Mountain Dew with your brie. Next week, we head to Kentucky and meet a tree farm owner and operator spreading Christmas joy with fresh trees. The owner says she got into the business because they didn't know a thing about raising livestock. That story next week on U.S. Farm Report. Still to come, meet a California farm family with deep ranching roots, but those roots may be replaced due to demand for tree nuts. Leave a Legacy is next.
It's easy to use. Your planting windows are so small in the spring. We're able to put it in the planter and plant out the field. We don't have to make sure the planter's empty to make sure we don't have any more refuge corn in the planter. Our corn is looking really good. That's a tough thing to say in a year like this. It's a family-run business. I've been farming all my life, been here. We were born and raised here. I'm Nels Kobush from Wabasca, Minnesota.
Each day, our planet awakens with signs of opportunity. But with opportunity comes risk. And to manage this risk, the world turns to CME Group. We help farmers lock in future prices. Banks manage interest rate changes. And airlines hedge fuel costs. All so they can manage their risks and move forward. It's simply a matter of following the signs. They all lead here. CME Group, how the world advances.
Soybean growers have searched the universe for an advanced fungicide. One with longer lasting protection, advanced plant health benefits, consistent performance. But what they're looking for is already here. Priaxor fungicide. More consistent yield increases than any other fungicide, at least in this universe. Priaxor fungicide. One small step for growers, one giant leap for crop protection.
Leave a Legacy is brought to you by DuPont Pioneer. DuPont Pioneer, helping you get the right product on the right acre. Science with service, delivering success.
The Borer family of Gerber, California has a long tradition in cattle, but growing demand for walnuts and almonds are forcing the family to rethink their business plan. In this Leave a Legacy profile, Clinton Griffiths tells us about the tough decisions ahead.
There's no shortage of work at the Tehama Family Ranch in Gerber, California.
On any given day, it's going to be different every day.
Between managing roughly 500 cows, nearly 700 acres of almond and walnut orchards, and farming a few row crop and hay fields, the Borer family is constantly on the move.
We're going to have our bull sow here in a few days. Then we'll know how that turned out.
Cattle is how this operation started nearly a century ago. In 1918, Francis Bohr moved his family to Springville, California, to work in the dairy industry. But it was an FFA project that ultimately pulled this family into the purebred beef business.
When I was 9 years old, my dad bought my first cow, and he also bought some cows in too, so that's what started the registered Angus business.
In 1948, the family moved north to Gerber with about 50 cows.
Then I came back from school in 1958 and started developing a registered Angus herd that became rather prominent over the years.
Bill was the first to hold his own private Angus bull sale in California. And in 2013, that sale marked number 39 for the Tehama Ranch.
Now the competition has got so tough that we can all do the same thing.
That tough competition has less impact today as the family diversifies its operation away from cattle.
Currently, we keep planting more and more almonds, and it's kind of a question is, do we take some cow pasture out to plant more almonds?
The Bohrs now have about 450 acres of almonds and 225 acres of walnuts, managed mainly by Eric. But these cowboys will tell you it hasn't come without plenty of teachable moments.
I always say the day you quit learning, you might as well dig a hole and crawl in because you're done.
I can remember lessons learned from when I was a young boy that has made what this operation is today.
Lessons they're now trying to pass on to Kevin's son, Bryce.
Right now I'm just simply involved with the cattle and I'm slowly taking that over, but I think that there's an awful lot to learn.
My dad took over at a young age when he got out of school, and it's time to pass that on to the next generation.
It's a torch Bill passed to his boys.
I look back on what Dad let us do back then. I kind of scratch my head and think, how in the hell did he let us do that?
What do you think my dad thought?
A wife and mother on this operation, Linda has been the keeper of the books, a role she too hopes to eventually pass down.
The biggest problem that I see is Linda's job keeps getting bigger.
I suppose that I will have someone doing more of the work because my husband thinks that he will be doing less here.
They're a family with a future and plans to move it forward as the work of transferring another generation's knowledge now begins.
He can watch us and he can learn, and if he chooses, if he doesn't choose to learn, then he can do it by the school of hard knocks, which is probably the best education. Because you do it wrong once, you're probably not going to do it that way again.
Thanks, Clinton. When we come back, Tractor Tales and our Country Church Salute. Please stay with us.
Miss any of today's show? Head to usfarmreport.com to watch the program online. U.S. Farm Report, the spirit of the countryside.
You see it everywhere nowadays. We call it the yield bump. It's a grower's way of saying you made a good decision. Because when you treat young corn with an early season application of Stratego Yield fungicide, you get stronger stalks, healthier fields, and even higher yields. So get a jump on your yield bump with Stratego Yield Early Season.
This is more than just your yield. More than a job well done. It's what you were meant to do. And a passion we share for the life of your land, for the life that you love. It's more than just another day. It's your moment. And with Mycogen Seeds, this is just the beginning.
What is your emergency? Need assistance at County Road 61 and Highway 9. Help is on its way.
Clear! There's a better way to jumpstart your soil back to health. Apply Endzone to protect and increase nitrogen efficiency without killing bacteria. Apply Prevent to increase phosphorus availability and reduce fixation. Better yet, use them both to get more from your fertilizer investment and see higher potential yields. Ag Explorer, your prescription for healthy soil.
Hey, what's going on? Just checking the fields. Yours are looking pretty good. Must be doing something right.
Actually, I got a guy.
You got a guy?
Well, it's not just any guy. I got a Channel seedsman.
Channel, yeah?
Yeah, I've been working with him pretty close to get, well, you can see for yourself. This is what I'd recommend. Let's get to work.
this is what you want to see.
Maybe I should get a guide.
Maybe you should get a channel seedsman.
Find your channel seedsman at channel.com.
Tractor Tales this week focuses on some classic iron in Southwest Florida. It's a 1939 Model B John Deere. The current owner bought it from a friend in upstate New York, and you'll never guess how the transaction took place.
My dad told the guy, put your cell phone up to the engine while he's got it running and let me hear it run. And if it sounds good, tell him I'll take it. So for $2,500, we bought the John Deere tractor. My dad made the long voyage up, about 25 hours driving, pulling a trailer behind him just to go get his tractor. Brought it back home, we got it all painted up, looking pretty, and then he decided we needed something else to pull behind it. And so every year my mom and dad go up to North Carolina and looking for Christmas trees that, every year, right after Thanksgiving, they take about a 2-week trip. As they were driving back from the Christmas tree farm, they happened to notice this manure spreader. Not as pretty, definitely, it was a farm, really used piece of machinery. Noticed it in the guy's front yard, had a for sale sign on it. So my mom said my dad turned around, it was like he saw God back there or something. He turned around so fast and had that bad boy on his trailer. So he brought it home, our guys painted it all up, sandblasted it, cleaned it up, put a John Deere sticker on there like you can see now, and that's our big boy's little toy. This one here is a little different. You gotta spin the flywheel to get it to go. You gotta play with the throttle and the choke as well. You gotta play with the fuel, the mixture and everything on the carburetor. It's a lot more labor intensive. The clutch is the stick on the side of the tractor itself and you gotta release that to go forward. There's a lot more involved in bare bones, no luxuries at all. Everything works because you have to make it work. It's not one of those that just takes it over for you. The manure spreader is functioning. We did disengage it, but it is a fully functioning manure spreader. If you wanted to, you could actually pull with this tractor and farm with it right now.
This week's Country Church Salute goes to Sacred Heart Catholic Church in White Deer, Texas. It was started 100 years ago in the Texas Panhandle by Polish immigrants. Descendants of those families arrived in Galveston, Texas from Poland in 1854. They eventually worked northward building homes, starting families, and farming the land. The first church was built by the hands of Polish farmers in 1913. About 50 years ago, the congregation built a new church on the same location, and it continues to serve today. Our thanks to Carolyn Rapstein for sharing the news of Sacred Heart Catholic Church in White Deer, Texas. Our second salute takes us to Florida, where the Astatula Baptist Church is celebrating its nearly 130 years of ministry. The church was started in 1886, serving the community for many years, but when World War II broke out, the congregation padlocked the doors as men headed off to war. Church member Laura Sharp says when one of the oldest and current members returned home from the war, he took off the padlock and started having services once again. Our thanks to Astatula Baptist Church. As always, we want to learn about your home church as well. Salutes can be sent to the address on the screen. Stay with us. The mailbag is next.
Prosaro fungicide provides broad-spectrum disease control to help maximize yield and profit potential in wheat and barley by protecting crops from both scab and leaf diseases. Many growers across the country have maximized their yield and profit potential by using Prosaro. That includes North Dakota wheat grower Greg Messer.
You can actually see the difference from the distance of a field from a mile away, just in the color of the straw that Prosaro treats it. It's almost not only is it a cure, but it's like a preservative too.
Dwayne Riley from Ohio says he had seen some higher DON levels over the past few years, but has noticed the quality of his wheat increase since using Prosaro.
We have seen some yield response with Prosaro. We've really seen a response in the quality of the grain, and for someone that's doing wheat straw, the quality of the straw.
And Roger Gens from Michigan says that using Prosaro has helped him increase both the quantity and quality of his wheat.
Not only do we have a product that produces a lot of volume, but we also have a product that maybe can earn us a premium.
A man and his truck, and his son who would rather play computer games than go camping. And a valley, and a river, and the stars, and a new convert. The all-new Chevy Silverado, from one generation to the next, strong for all the roads ahead.
The Chevy Silverado is the official news-gathering vehicle for U.S. Farm Report.
Time now for our weekly look inside the Farm Report mailbag. Much of our coverage is aimed at larger farms, but one viewer thinks smaller farms are just as important. We need large farms and ranches, but we also need small operations. In my part of the country, farms are generally small compared to the central and western region. Well, similar to other parts of our economy, the only farmer categories that are increasing in number are very large farms and very small farms. Like our viewer, I also think we need both. There is a demand for farm output produced in a particular way: organic, free-range, grass-fed, and so forth. This demand is best met by smaller operations close to population centers. The growing desire for consumers to know more about where their food comes from means proximity is crucial. On the other hand, a U-pick strawberry operation, for example, in the middle of Oklahoma may not make much business sense. The land also determines what the farms will be like. In sparsely populated prairies, huge operations are a more efficient way to harvest the maximum amount of solar energy, which is what we essentially do. I share the vision of farmer numbers dominated by thousands of small agrarian farms near cities and where topography supports them. Meanwhile, vast operations will produce commodities to meet market demand for low-cost output. Incidentally, I think health insurance reform will encourage small farms, as fewer aspiring farmers will have to work off-farm to get coverage. As always, we want to hear from you. Send comments to mailbag@usfarmreport.com or leave us a voicemail at 800-792-4329. For Al, Tyne, and Mike, I'm John Phipps saying thank you for watching U.S. Farm Report. Be sure to join us again next week. We'll be working to do even better.
U.S. Farm Report is produced and distributed by Farm Journal Television.